Ciao a tutti, it's Orion, and today we finally have the long-awaited trap staple lineup of that format. Traps are the first thing that comes to mind when people think about that format, well, that or Soul Charge. And they are an absolutely crucial part of the format, part of the format's identity, like, and that and the format's prior, after Dragon Rulers. What kind of distinguishes them from the format before Dragon Rulers in Zexal is that heavy is banned, but all of the most powerful trap cards are limited, or in case of Solemn Judgment, banned. So you kind of you don't you can set 4 and relax, but at the same time, if you're going against set 4, you don't have the crutch that is Heavy Storm, but at the same time, the traps are not going to be so powerful that you need the crutch of Heavy Storm to play through them most of the time. So yeah, that's part of why I love the format, but that's enough chit chat. We already have a lot of stuff. There's a spell that I wanted to mention because I kind of forgot about it in the spell stable, but just a quick mention. Anyways, speaking of past videos, I don't think I need to talk too much about Breakthrough Skill, and I also don't think I need to talk too much about Artifact Sanctum. They are the two strongest unlimited traps in the format. Just push them aside for a little bit. But more importantly, we have the limited traps. So it's bottomless, trap hole, compulsory evacuation device, torrential tribute, and solemn warning. These are the limited traps that you would play in the main deck. I don't know why I put them in this order, because if you're going by strength, I would go torrential first, then solemn warning, then bottomless, and then finally compose. But why? Well, torrential is the most played by far, because like mid-range decks can avoid it, stuff like Constellars, Gilga Karakuri, but and also combo decks don't play it because it's trap. But like control decks play it. Pretty much all control decks play torrential. A lot of combo decks, aggro decks, Mermelks play it. Mythic Rulers, it's a staple there too. A lot of various kinds of decks play torrential tribute. So that's why. And also like Solemn Warning, it stops Soul Charge. Not exactly like Solemn Warning, but yeah. Then Solemn Warning, absolutely great card. It stops Soul Charge. The main issue with it is that like playing it alongside 3 Soul Charges is kind of a tough ask. I would generally recommend playing either 2 Soul Charges and 1 Warning, or 3 Soul Charges. I would not play 3 and 1. And yeah, like if you go look at Mermel's stats, that's kind of what most people do anyways. So happy to not have found something incredible with this revelation. But yeah, Solemn Warning really, really strong versus pretty much anything. Especially strong versus Soul Charge. Bottomless, it's kind of like not the greatest versus the tier 1 decks. It's very strong versus anything else besides spellbooks. But versus the tier 1 decks, it's just fine. It has its targets, like Moral Attack and Play These are fine targets. Gilgi Arsenal and Gilgi Gantex without Gilgiano in Graveyard are good targets. Abyss Lean is a great target for bottomless. If they Abyss Sphere, just Lean, and that's very strong. But besides that, it's searchable and resettable by trap trickses, so that's very relevant in the format. And then we have Compulse, which it's kind of the weakest, because like it's only really strong versus XYZs, versus extra deck monsters. And sometimes set gear armor, but besides that, not the greatest. Sometimes I see people cutting it for like a third breakthrough skill. I think that's fine. It's kind of up to personal preference. Yeah, like honestly, like it could come 2-2, and it would be fine. Not that I wish it was at 2, because like honestly, like I think the trap lineup is perfect in the format. I will not change a staple at all in the format, but yeah, limited traps. And then for other like generic traps, we have Traptrix Triple Nightmare. It's mainly played with Traptrixes, Mermelios. One thing I do have to note is that like generally you don't want to play cards of multiple rarities if you're playing IRL, because like then the opponent knows you're playing multiples. But with Traptrix Triple Nightmare, really, because usually you play just one, so if you play two, seriously play them off the same rarity, like for real. It's very important, especially since like it's one of those cards that they can play around, because like Gigantex and Pleiades are great examples of cards that just can play around Triple Starple Nightmare by just waiting a bit. Besides that, it's like great versus Moral Attack, which is why, in my opinion, it's pretty good in spellbooks, even if they can search it. Besides that, I don't think it's particularly great, because like most of the time you'd rather just have Breakthrough Skill or Finish Chain. But it has its niches, even outside, Tropic says. It's good in Protector Castle decks, for example. Stops 1-on-1. That's great too. Moral Attack, obviously. Those are kind of the biggest targets. Exiton too. A lot of stuff. Versus like Mermaid, it's great versus Theos. Versus Gilgias, it's great versus Gigantex if they don't hold on to the effect to play around it, because it destroys the Gigantex in chaining too, so it makes it miss timing, so it doesn't float. And again, versus that, it's great versus Moral Attack. Then we have kind of one of the most common traps for like combo decks, Phoenix Wing Beam Blaster, kind of a staple in like Mythic Rulers and to a lesser extent Mermals, because they have the discard fodder, like the dragon stuff, dragon rulers, and for Mermals they have like controller, for example. So very proactive trap, chainable. Putting stuff on top of the deck is really strong, especially versus like Mermals. Can be good versus artifacts if they're trying to combo with artifacts. Pretty good in that situation, because removes it from the field without destroying it, and doesn't let ignition even destroy its own card, so it doesn't get to set anything. Then we have Finish Chain, which is more for very control heavy decks. It's staple in Gilgias, very common in decks like Spirits. Used to be a lot more common in like Bujins and Evil Swarms, before people started to take out the traps from them. Spellbooks, really strong in spellbooks, decent in like Menologies. Finish Chain is like permanent breakthrough that also functions as a battle trap, but obviously you don't get the double negate of breakthrough skill, which is usually more relevant, especially since like it's effect negation, it's not removal, so they can just XYZ the monster, and then Finish Chain doesn't really get any benefit from that. And then the last like generic unlimited main deckable reactive trap is Black Horn of Heaven, though like I'll generally not recommend maining it in anything but like Protected Castle decks, mainly because like it's great versus Gilgias, but that's kinda it. Like there's other XYZ decks like Meloches, but those are like tier 2. Versus the tier 1 and tier 1.5 decks, it's only really great versus Meloches, Gilgias, and I guess Mythic Rulers if you're going first. But like Do keep in mind that if you're new, how it works. It only negates inherent summons, which means stuff like it negates stuff like Cyber Dragon summoning itself. Um, you know, an XYZ summon and a synchro summon, stuff that doesn't start a chain, but it doesn't negate like Hero Leaves or Artifact Sanctum. So just keep that in mind if you're new. But yeah, this used to be around a lot more, but nowadays I would just like play Diddy Crow. Like it used to be played a lot more in like Geargias, but nowadays Geargia Pure just usually plays Diddy Crows because it addresses every other deck a lot better, especially its counters like Mermlos and kind of mythic rulers. Like big monster decks, combo decks don't like Diddy Crow more. So if you have the space, I will just play that. But besides that, it's a pretty good side card for Geargias mainly because it doesn't Geargian text doesn't hit the field if it gets warninged or Blackhorn because they get the summon negated, so they never really hit the field. So yeah. Then for other generic traps, we have let's move. Yeah, let's move this. Not the focus anymore. We have Reckless Greed. Great card for decks like Mythic Rulers, sometimes Spellbooks. If you want to deck thin and you have the room for it, especially if your deck digs a lot. Reckless Greed can be good. Then we have 3 Call of the Haunted, beautiful Hobbyleaks. Mainly played with artifacts because obviously you summon during the opponent's turn with it, so you trigger more attack or big attack again. Besides that, decks like Gyuga Karakuri can play it. I tried it, I didn't like it. Besides that, it's not really that common. Some like rank 4 mid-range decks sometimes play, but it's mainly played in artifacts really. Rogue stuff like scraps, I guess. And then for back row hate, we have Trapstun and Wartap. Trapstun is more for OTK decks. Decks like Malolches, Giga Harakuri, Dragon Ruler decks can run it if you want, but I wouldn't really bother. But those are kind of the main decks that run Trapstun. It's kind of interesting when to use it. You kind of have to guess. You have to judge your odds whether it's more likely that they have wiretap or multiple negates to what you want to go through. So you kind of have to read based on whatever they played already, whatever you didn't play into. So like if you didn't activate traps and drops, you can't really know if they activated wiretap. But yeah, like generally I would recommend using it immediately. Sometimes it's worth holding on to it a little bit because you get more value because like if you just use it blindly, it's a -1. You have to win that turn. If not, you chain it to a trap and it's a 1-for-1 that also stuns their back row. So you kind of have to read whether it's likely that they will play through trap stun with a chain link 2, with a chain link 3 wiretap or another trap or not. Wiretap is the main trap negate. It's one of the like main anti-trap cards alongside trap stun, Forbidden Lance, MST, and all the cards like it. That you would main, but it's also a decent side card. Yeah, Wiretap pretty damn good, especially if you want to like make sure that stuff doesn't go through, and it's better versus artifacts than Lance, even if it's slower, because it hits Sanctum at least. Doesn't hit every other way to bring out the artifacts, but neither does Lance. So yeah, those are kind of the most important cards. Then let's get into our battle traps, because those exist and they're not very relevant in the format, but I just wanted to mention them. Mirror Force, it's semi-limited. Dimensional Prison, it's also semi-limited. And Memory of an Adversary, which is kind of a side grade to the Prison. You take the damage equal to the opponent's monster's attack that attacked. And then during your next end phase, or the opponent's next end phase, you get to special summon back the monster that you banished. So it's good if you like still. It's good versus pretty much all of the hat cards, because like the hands you get to pop, and since it wasn't in the opponent's possession anymore, it doesn't get to special summon. The artifacts, they get special summon during their end phase, I think, and Trap Trick says trigger of being special summoned, but the life point cost does definitely hinder it, so I will really only play it in like decks that don't really play Soul Charge, stuff like Spirits and some builds of 4-axis Fire Fists, I guess. The Prison, it's good versus hands, so yeah, you can side it in decks that hate hands. Besides that, it doesn't really have a niche. Mirror Force kind of has more of a niche because it's kind of good versus in spellbooks, and decent in Girgias, but Girga Karakuri, but I wouldn't really bother with it. Yeah, then we have some side deck cards. I've already went over these two. They are sided if you side Murmulio. Yeah, they played I talked about them in the Artifact Trap Tricks video. Then we have some anti-back row, more anti-Floodgate stuff. These are cards that you would side if you really auto-lose to back rows, to Floodgates. So Malevolent Catastrophe, Dust Tornado, and in my opinion, if you want to out Floodgates, you shouldn't run Dust Tornado. Twister, better. Forgot to talk about it in the Spell Staples video, but decks like Mermels, to a lesser extent like Bujins, spellbooks sometimes. Decks that auto-lose to Floodgates and that don't really mean a lot of outs to them. Those are good cards to consider if you don't already main deck or side deck multiple MSTs. So yeah. There's that. Then we have. So I apologize for the platinum rare on that Malevolent Catastrophe. Needle Seeding, I don't have multiple copies. It's a good side deck card for combo decks, for decks like Girgias, Worms, Ghost Tricks, play decks. Then we have limited Transmigration Prophecy. It's kind of like Didicro or Cycle Reader. Shuffles back two cards in the graveyards, either graveyard, so it's great in Madolches, even in the main deck, honestly. But besides that, it's a really strong anti-graveyard card. And also in the same anti-graveyard card, we have the Bank. Very strong. Just keep in mind that if a card left got discarded and went to the graveyard, it doesn't get banished by the Bank because it isn't in the hand anymore. Which is kind of weird, but whatever. It's whatever. It's like Didicro doesn't banish Didicro, is what I'm trying to say, but it still negates. So yeah, very strong. It's also strong versus hand traps, unlike stuff like Schoolmeister. And then we get to the Floodgates. There's quite a bit to go through. The two most common ones are Vanity's Emptiness and, more importantly, Skill Drain. Vanity's, MBT says it's such an oppressive, strong card in the front. No, it's not. It's fucking not. No one plays it. It's decent in some sign decks like Rulers. Infernities can side it sometimes. And, it's good in Sylvans. Too bad Sylvans suck. And Infernities already win if they go first. Mythic Rulers, you should already be siding in stuff against Skill Drain, which is, a lot stronger in the format, because Mythic Ruler is a very strong deck, and it main decks Skill Drain, because it doesn't give a shit about Skill Drain. Heroic Rulers also main Skill Drain. It's very strong versus a lot of decks. Does get outed by the hands, but yeah, some decks just don't even play out to it, which is why Crazy Box is a good card in the format, honestly. We get there when we get there in the extra deck staples video. Look forward to that. Anyways, yeah, those are kind of the most common floodgates that you will find pre-siding. Besides that, there's Rivalry of Warlords. I don't think this card is very good. They say it's good in versus Mermals. Is it? They can just add it with Undyne after turn one. I don't exactly see it. But people are playing it, so whatever. I might be wrong. I don't know. It's strong versus like Constellars, Evil Swarms, Malulches. Those mid-range XYZ decks. It's decent versus like extra deck toolbox stuff in general, but it's not that strong, in my opinion. Then for more side deck stuff, Soul Drain in Macrocosmos, these are limited. These are kind of staples in Gilgia side deck, and other stuff, especially for Mermals, that's kind of the main issue. They're also pretty good versus like Dragon Rulers, Light Swords, I guess. All of the graveyard stuff, pretty good. Just do keep in mind that that's not for this video, but whatever. This will be okay, whatever. Dimensional Fissure is also part of that trio. Keep in mind that it doesn't work versus artifacts. If they are in the back rows, they count as back rows and not as monsters, so they don't go to they don't get banished if they get popped while in the back row forms. Just saying. Anyways, then we have Light Imprisoning Mirror. 4 artifacts, pretty much. It's kind of hard to make a Floodgate stick versus artifacts though, so just keep that in mind. Then we have Imperial now, Iron Wall. It's pretty great versus like spell books, Mythic Rulers, Boujins, but the issues are kind of like, one, it usually conflicts with your other sidings like Macrocosmos and DD Crow. And also, not all decks can play it. Stuff like Constellars and Evil Swarms, you wouldn't side it against them, but you can't really side it in them. So that's kind of an issue for it. A bit more of a generic trap if you want to counter mainly just spellbooks. It's DNA Surgery, I only have the one. Very strong versus spellbooks. Besides that, it's pretty good versus like Boujins. If you have it and you don't have anything else better, you have a lot of stuff to side out. You could side it in versus Gilgias because it prevents Gilgian attacks. You can also do some funny things with it yourself. Like, I don't know, call Dinosaur and make Lagia. That's something. But yeah. And then the last Floodgate and last trap I wanted to talk about is Royal Decree. I didn't put it up, well, besides because it is a Floodgate, I didn't put it up with like traps and wiretap because like the main issue with it is like, especially versus artifact trap deck, it's so fragile. They run a lot of outs to it, and even versus other control decks, you often have an out. So it's very frail, but like if it manages to stick somehow, it's very strong. Obviously, it's a very trap heavy format. So yeah, that was it. Keep an eye out for the extra deck staples tier list series stuff. Leave a like, join the discords, leave a comment. subscribe, ring the bell, all that good shit, and goodbye.